That's how it started. The communities, the elders were concerned that there were not any students from their communities going into the sciences.
I see really it's and has to be your guiding principles as to how one should live while you are here on this earth.
Two-eyed seeing, as brought to us by Elder Albert Marshall, Mi'kmaq elder at Eskasoni, is recognizing that there are different ways of looking at the world, and maybe two of those ways are the Western scientific way and the Indigenous peoples or the Aboriginal peoples way. And that two-eyed seeing refers to finding the strengths in both of those, the Western and the Indigenous, and mindfully bringing those strengths together, drawing upon the deep understandings that they represent, the strengths of each, and bringing them together to work together to go forward on this planet together.
I feel that what we learned as First Nations people in your own identity, Mi'kmaq, is valuable. I also believe that the concepts being brought on by Europeans is also valuable in today's world. And you try to bring those two together and look at it through two-eyed seeing that both are very valuable and both can be achieved.
Our airs are poisoned, our rivers are poisoned, our forests are pretty much gone, and the animals are extinct even as we speak. With this two-eye seeing, we very quickly realize and see that science is not going to save the environment or the natural world, but rather a change of attitudes, change of mindsets.
I see the strengths of Western science as being the ability to look at the physical world, see the patterns within it, and take those patterns apart and find the mechanisms, or try to search for the mechanisms that bring those patterns into existence. And then on the basis of that reconstructed understanding, try to improve upon our material existence often for humans on this world. I see the strengths of the Indigenous peoples, on the other hand, of also seeing the patterns in the world, but rather than taking them apart to reconstruct them, it's more of a working of patterns within patterns. In other words, a weaving of yourself and your understandings into the world in which you live. I think one of the most exciting and useful ways to teach science would be to use one of the methods from science itself, which is the compare and contrast. Why can't we educate our science students as to what the mainstream way of doing science is, and compare it and contrast with another way of doing science from an Indigenous perspective? Why can't we put them side by side and use them to help a student develop a better understanding of what mainstream science is and what other perspectives on science are? That's a scientific method, compare and contrast.
Basically, the education system has taught us to absorb every knowledge we get without actually questioning it or looking at it from another perspective.
Why do we think that we can teach by focus on the one thing when the whole of human consciousness is not a focus on one thing? It's always a back and forth, a scanning of the environment, and a compare and contrast, and a past and a future within the present.
With Mi'kmaq identity, as I was growing up, I didn't know any other identity because I was being trained in Mi'kmaq. I was trained in the language, and in the language are embedded all of your oral traditions, all your moral, and all your everyday life. Your history is involved in it, because when you went to bed at night without the competition of television, Atari, and everything else, you had stories. You had stories about your own history. You had stories about everything that it was required to make you into a better human being.
Part of the struggle of anybody, I don't think it matters who you are, is to ask yourself and to learn, who am I? So if an educational system ignores part of who you think you are, simply because it doesn't include your people's understandings, as for example, if the science curricula does not include any of the understandings that Canada's Aboriginal peoples have with respect to the land that they've occupied for thousands of years, then that ability to develop a well-balanced and deep understanding of who you are as a young Aboriginal in Canada today is going to be denied.
Our journey here is not meant for one perspective or one consciousness to get us through. We all need each other. So the lessons that we are trying to put forth now is to our young people. It's going to be much more expedient if we can take the best for whatever tools the white man has brought forth and the tools what our forefathers had left us with.
This tool I've seen is valuable when you pick from the two when you pick from two worlds and try to co-join those two. I find it very difficult, but I know it has to be done. I know I can't crawl into my culture and say, oh, that's all I need to survive in this world. I also know that you need the white man's education to survive in this world and be happy. And I think the white man also needs me to what I have to offer.
We have a challenge ahead of us to bring to the attention of that educational system that the Western way of looking at things is but one way.
Paraphrasing Chief Dan George saying, we shall take the instruments of the white man, his tools and his education, and we'll incorporate them with ours so we can create a better world for everyone.